So we're going to try to explain what a beneficial owner is, and we're going to kind of step through a couple different places to try to figure this out. But one of the things that I want to make sure that you understand is that a beneficial owner's primary linkage in the code is actually related to a W-4. So when you fill out a W-4, and if you go to the more advanced section and look up a Form W-4, it'll kind of get in a little bit more meat in that subject. But a beneficial owner is described over in Form W-4. But for now, we're going to try to focus just on the beneficial owner itself. And so in this is 26 CFR 1.1441-4C2, it says alternate withholding election. It says the fact that the withholding agent, and again, we know that a withholding agent is actually someone that is in possession of income that's going to a non-resident alien or foreign corporation. It says withholding agent asks the beneficial owner. So they're referring to this thing as a beneficial owner, and it says to furnish a Form W-4. Well, who asked you to fill out a W-4? It's your employer. And you'll find out employer is actually the same thing as a withholding agent. So when you actually start digging into what the definitions and what these things are referring to, they're all the same thing. It's the person in control of money going to a non-resident alien. That's who a withholding agent is. So the mere fact that it is talking about a withholding agent here is kind of evidence that we're talking about something to dealing with non-resident aliens money. But it says the beneficial owner to furnish a Form W-4 for such fellowship or scholarship income, or to take such income into account in preparing such Form W-4, shall serve as notice to the beneficial owner that the income is being treated as wages for the purposes of withholding tax under Section 1441. Again, 1441 is actually your income from sources within the United States for non-resident aliens. A withholding agent only deals with non-resident aliens, and now they're referring to a Form W-4, which we'll get into later, in reference to 1441, which is non-resident alien section. So they're kind of mixing all together here. All right, so we go on in 1.1441-1C6, it describes the actual beneficial owner as the term beneficial owner means the person who is the owner of the income for tax purposes and who beneficially owns that income. It's kind of interesting when you start looking at your bank and they forced you to sign a Form W-9, which is strictly related to U.S. persons. And now you kind of see what's going on with the beneficial owner thing, because a U.S. person is a beneficial owner. There's someone that owns the income for a non-resident alien. They can use it. They can do whatever they want to with it. They own it, but it's actually for a non-resident alien, which is why you have to pay the tax. Now, it goes on to say that beneficial ownership of income is determined under the provisions of Section 7701L. Now, that section states the Secretary may prescribe regulations recharacterizing any multiple party financing transaction as a transaction directly among two or more of such parties where the Secretary determines that such recharacterization is appropriate to prevent avoidance of any tax imposed by this title. So a lot of mumbo jumbo, but we'll just kind of go with it for now because it'll start making more sense in a moment. So the one thing it doesn't really say. All right, so in C2 is that same section. It says alternate withholding election. A withholding agent may elect. So a withholding agent may elect to withhold on amounts prescribed in paragraph C1 of this section at the rates applicable under Section 3402. Well, that's payroll taxes. So we're in non-resident alien code 1441. And it's actually referring to what we believe are payroll taxes under 3402. And so you'll get into more of that when you get into the Form W-4. But for now, it's just interesting that they've drawn that link. And then it says they're doing this as if the income were wages. Well, under 3402 payroll taxes, they have a different term that they use for this gross income, which are wages. And it's basically sources from within the United States. And you'll get into more of this again in Form W-4. So we're talking about 3402, and they're going to treat our income as if it were wages. And then it goes on to say such election shall be obtained with a Form W-4. Shall be made by obtaining a Form W-4. So you have to give them a Form W-4, which is you admitting that you are the beneficial owner of a non-resident alien's money. I don't know really how much clearer that could get, but we'll keep going. All right, so it goes on to say the fact that the withholding agent asks the beneficial owner. So again, they're not treating you as a person making income or making wages. They're calling you this thing called a beneficial owner. And they're saying the fact that the withholding agent asked you to fill out a W-4, well, who asked you to fill out a W-4? There's only one person in the entire world that asked you to fill out a W-4, and that's your employer. So now we've got a link between employer, withholding agent, and non-resident aliens, and a Form W-4. So the only person that will ever ask you to fill out the Form W-4 is your employer, and this is saying that you are a beneficial owner if they've asked you to fill that out. And just to go back, it says the fact that the withholding agent asked you, the beneficial owner, to furnish a Form W-4 for such fellowship or scholarship income. And those are like misleading things, I think. The big thing is, or to take such income into account in preparing a Form W-4 shall serve as notice to the beneficial owner, you, the employee, that the income is being treated as wages for the purposes of withholding tax under Section 1441. Well, that gets even more interesting because wages are only defined in the context of payroll, but this is talking about in the context of 1441, which is tax on non-resident aliens. So it's somehow where the W-4 is linked to beneficial owners, or you declaring your status as a beneficial owner, and the income is related to something to do with a non-resident alien. And that pretty much should prove enough of how this link is going, but we'll go on. So going back to that beneficial owner section, it has some extra stuff. It says, in the case of a payment of an amount that is not income, the beneficial owner determination, again, you filling out that W-4, shall be made under this paragraph C6 as if the amount were income. It goes on to say the beneficial owners of income paid to an entity described in this paragraph C6 are those persons described in paragraphs this section through D of this section. And those are the beneficial owners of income paid to a foreign partnership, the beneficial owners of income paid to a foreign simple trust, the beneficial owners of income paid to a foreign complex trust. You'll notice all of this is foreign income. So these beneficial owners have something to do with this money that is being paid to these other things that are foreign and not domestic income. When I say domestic, I mean within the several states, not domestic within the District of Columbia. All right, so the beneficial owner is serving as this conduit between these two things. And if we look down here, we get to 1441 C16, and it says withholding certificate. Withholding certificate. The term withholding certificate means a Form W-8, and it goes on to list some things. And then it says related to a flow-through entities, a Form W-9 or a Form 8233 and a Form W-9. So this is this flow-through entity is what they're calling it here. But if you remember from up here, it's actually called, and I forgot to put the section. Let me do this real quick. We're going to add L in here. So we'll just put that right there. But you notice what the title is. It's conduit arrangements. So that L section that it was referring to has a title of a conduit arrangement. And then down here, they're actually referring to it as a flow-through entity. So all of these things are related to non-resident aliens or money going to a foreign corporation or foreign trust. And then here we have 1441 D1, which is claim of status. And it says a withholding agent is not required to withhold under Chapter 3, non-resident alien stuff from sources within the United States, of the code on payments to a U.S. payee. So now we got a whole different term, to a person presumed to be a U.S. payee in accordance with provisions of B3 of this section, or to a person that the withholding agent may treat as a U.S. beneficial owner of the payment. So, and you have to remember, a beneficial owner is somebody that is holding this pass-through money that's destined for a non-resident alien. And this is saying that the withholding agent doesn't have to withhold the money in this situation because it's already being withheld through the payroll taxes. So there's no reason for them to do it again because it's already being done in another section. So you're going to get to Form W-4 and Form W-9 in the next sections of this tutorial, and you'll get a little bit more context to what is being said here. But the primary point to take away from this is that a beneficial owner, in all of the references that are in the Title 26, are all related to someone who has filled out a W-4, and you have to ask who has asked you to fill out that W-4, and it's your employer, and therefore they're a withholding agent, or they're pretending to be a withholding agent, and you are declaring your status as being someone that is a conduit in the middle of the employer paying you, and then you're going to eventually give it to some non-resident alien that is not specified. They don't even care. All they care is that you declared yourself as being this person, and therefore they're going to require the tax to be taken out.